Three men at a dinner table laughed about my marriage. One said my husband married his marketing strategy. Another said my face on a brochure brought more clients than his entire sales team. The third raised his glass and said, "That man does not do anything without a business plan." They were not being cruel. That was the worst part. They thought I already knew. I smiled through it, excused myself, went home, opened the bottom drawer of his filing cabinet, and found a folder called Brand Ambassador Strategy. A plan, a budget, line items for every romantic dinner, every photo shoot, every weekend getaway, and where my name should have been 4 words: American wife, to be determined. I was not his love story. I was a line item in a business plan he wrote before he ever knew my name. My name is Morgan. I am 60 years old, sitting in my living room in Houston, Texas, and I have been carrying this story for 25 years. It has teeth, baby. It smiles at you first, holds your hand, takes you to a rooftop restaurant in Seoul, and tells you that you are beautiful, and then it bites so hard you do not recognize your own face in the mirror. His sister taught me every wrong custom on purpose. His mother told a lawyer, "Get the boy in this." And the man I loved, he signed the papers. But I am getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back. Year 2000. I was 35, living in Houston with my whole life spread out like a picnic blanket. Communications degree from the University of Houston, class of 87. 12 years in corporate PR and event planning. Good job, good money. The kind of life my mother prayed over and my grandmother said I had better not waste. My people were close. A mama called every Sunday. Grandma Ernestine kept a pot of greens on the stove for anyone who walked through her door. My aunties were loud, honest, and everywhere. That was my safety net. Remember that. Because I was about to cut every thread of it. June Seo arrived in Houston that October for an international business conference. He ran an agency in Seoul called Bridge Korea, cultural exchange for American corporations. His pitch to investors was simple, bold, and as I would learn much later, the blueprint for everything that came after. He needed a face for his brand, an American face, a warm one. He found mine across a conference reception hall. I was working the event. He walked over with 2 glasses of wine, not the cheap kind they were pouring at the bar, something he had ordered special. "You look like you needed something better than what they are serving." He smiled. Not too wide, just enough." I laughed. "How did you know what I like?" "I pay attention." He did. Lord, he did. Over the next 3 months, that man learned me like a textbook. My favorite flowers, stargazer lilies, my grandmother's sweet potato pie recipe, which he asked about like it was treasure. He remembered the name of my college roommate. He asked about my mother's arthritis. I fell in love the way you fall asleep, slowly, then all at once, and by the time you realize it, the dream is already running the show. When he asked me to come to Seoul, I did not hesitate long enough. He painted a picture of our life together, and I climbed right into the frame. I quit my job, packed 12 years of a career into boxes, stood in my mother's kitchen the night before I left, and listened to her voice crack through the phone. "Morgan, baby, you do not know this man's people. You do not know that place." "Mama, I know him. That is enough." It was not, but I did not know that yet. Seoul in the year 2000 was enormous, electric, and completely foreign. The air smelled different. The signs I could not read stretched in every direction. I stood in our apartment that first week like a woman on the moon. Beautiful view, no oxygen. That is when Soo-yeon showed up. June Seo's younger sister, 32, bright smile, UCLA education she mentioned within the first 5 minutes. She volunteered to be my guide, my translator, my bridge into Korean life. "I will teach you everything," she said, squeezing my hands. "We are sisters now." I believed her. I had no reason not to. And that right there is where the first domino fell. Within the first week, June Seo started moving. He called a photographer friend, a man who freelanced for a travel magazine. He booked a rooftop restaurant downtown, the kind with candles on every table and a view of the Seoul skyline that made you forget you were sitting on a building. He even called ahead about the wine, researched it, my exact preference from that first night in Houston. We sat across from each other, and the city glowed behind him like a painting someone made just for us. "You are beautiful tonight," he said. "You say that every night." "Because it is true every night." A man at the next table leaned over, camera around his neck. "Excuse me, you two are stunning together. May I take your photo?" I blushed. Junseo smiled and waved him in. We posed, his arm around me, my head tilted toward his shoulder. The flash went off and I felt like the luckiest woman in Seoul. I did not see Junseo excuse himself to the bathroom 10 minutes later. I did not hear the phone call he made from the hallway, the one where he confirmed the photographer got the shot. That photo ended up in a Bridge Korea brochure 3 weeks later. Headline across the top, "Love Across Cultures." But I did not know any of that. All I knew was that this man had flown me across the world and was still trying to make me feel like the only person in it. Now here's the thing I noticed, but did not let myself think about. At that restaurant, Junseo was golden, warm, his hand on mine across the table, his laugh easy and open. But when we walked through our front door that night, the warmth left his face like someone flipped a switch. He went straight to his office, closed the door. I heard him on the phone for an hour, voice low, all business. I told myself he was stressed. Building a company is hard. A man cannot be soft every minute of every day. That is what I told myself. I was wrong, but I would not know that for a long time. 3 days later, Soo-yeon called, sweet as sugar. "Morgan, there is a family dinner this weekend. Very important. Junseo's grandmother will be there, some aunties, a few of his business associates. I want to make a good impression." "You will. I will help you. Oh, one thing, we need name tags for the seating arrangement. Here." She handed me a pen. Red ink. Red is the lucky color in Korea. The family will love it. I spent an hour writing each name tag in careful, neat letters. I wrote the grandmother's name last, Kwam Young-hee, beautiful red ink on a crisp white card. The dinner started warm. I smiled at everyone. I bowed the way I had practiced. I set the name tags at each place setting, proud of myself. The grandmother picked up her card. Her face went still. She looked at the red ink. She looked at me. She set the card down without a word, pushed her chair back, and left the table. The room went silent. Every pair of eyes in that room landed on me like a spotlight. Junseo's jaw tightened. He leaned toward me, voice low enough to cut. "Red ink. You wrote her name in red ink." Soo-yeon said it was lucky. In Korea, writing someone's name in red means they are dead, or you wish them dead. My stomach dropped through the floor. I turned to look at Soo-yeon. She had her hand over her mouth, eyes wide, the perfect picture of shock. I wanted to disappear. I wanted to melt into the chair and never come back. My hands were shaking under the table. Every name tag I had written with such care now felt like a tiny crime scene laid out on white linen. After that night, Junseo corrected everything I did, how I held my chopsticks, how I bowed, how deep, how long, which hand went where. He drilled Korean customs into me like a man preparing a soldier for inspection. I thought it was love. I thought he cared so much about me fitting in with his family that he could not stand to see me stumble. I would practice a bow in the mirror and think, he wants this to work. He wants me to belong. He was not protecting my heart. He was protecting something else entirely. But that truth was still locked in a filing cabinet I had not opened yet. 2 weeks later, Soo-yeon asked me a question over tea. Casual, sisterly. "Any important meetings this week? I want to make sure I help you prepare." Junseo is introducing me to a business partner's parents. Very traditional family. The grandfather is 80. "Oh?" She leaned forward. "Then you need to know. The bowing thing is very old-fashioned now. Modern Koreans greet with a firm handshake. The grandfather will appreciate that you know the current way." I practiced my handshake. Firm, confident, American strong. When I met the grandfather, I extended my hand. He stared at it. His face hardened. He did not take it. He turned to his son and said something in Korean I could not understand, but I understood the tone. Disgust. That night, the business partner called Junseo. I heard the argument through the bedroom wall, Junseo's voice rising, then dropping, then rising again. I pressed my back against the headboard and stared at the ceiling. He did not come to bed until 2 in the morning. He did not say a word. I lay there in the dark, replaying the grandfather's face, the way his hand had hung in the air between us like something ugly. I whispered into the pillow, I am trying. Nobody heard me. The next week, Junseo arranged something I did not understand at the time. He told me he wanted to walk through Myeongdong, the big shopping district. He mapped the route himself. He checked the weather forecast. It might rain, he said. Bring a light jacket. It rained. Of course it rained. We were walking through the neon-lit streets, shopping bags bumping between us, when the sky cracked open and dumped half an ocean on Myeongdong. He pulled off his jacket and wrapped it around my shoulders in one motion. Then he pulled me against him under a tiny umbrella, my face pressed into his chest, both of us laughing as the rain hammered the pavement. I could feel his heartbeat through his shirt. His chin rested on top of my head. The rain made everything blurry and beautiful, like looking at the city through tears of joy. We ducked under the awning of a little coffee shop, still laughing, his arm still around me. He looked down at me with the water dripping off his hair, and I remember thinking, this is what love feels like. This exact thing, rain and warmth, and someone who holds you like you matter. What I did not know was that a 2-man video crew sat in a parked van across the street filming everything. The route Junseo picked passed 3 Bridge Korea partner businesses. The footage became a promotional VHS tape. Soul through her eyes. His agency sent copies to every corporate client on their mailing list. A week later, a magazine journalist showed up at our apartment. Junseo said they wanted to do a feature on international couples in Seoul. Just be natural, he said, adjusting my collar. Tell them our story. I was flattered. I told that journalist everything, how we met in Houston, how he brought me wine, how I fell in love with Seoul because I fell in love with him. I smiled for the camera like a woman who believed every word coming out of her own mouth. That magazine feature became the centerpiece of Bridge Korea's marketing brochure. My face, my words, my love story turned into his sales pitch, but I did not know that then. I thought we were just sharing something beautiful. By the 3rd month, I said it. We were standing in the kitchen late at night, him leaning against the counter, me washing dishes. I turned the water off, dried my hands, and looked at him. I love you, Junseo. Something crossed his face, a flicker. Then he stepped forward, took my face in both hands, and said, I love you too, Morgan. He said it right. He said it warm. He said it the way a woman needs to hear it. Now, I am telling you this from 25 years later, and I still cannot tell you whether he meant it that night. I have turned those words over in my mind like a stone in my pocket, smoothed them down to nothing, and I still do not know. But I know this. The words a person says matter less than the life they build around those words. And the life he was building around me was not what I thought. The next family dinner, Soo-yeon sat next to me. The drinks came out. Soju bottles lined the table. Everyone poured for each other. And Auntie poured for Junseo. Junseo poured for his mother. Soo-yeon deliberately skipped me. I sat there with an empty glass while everyone else drank and laughed. Finally, Soo-yeon leaned over and whispered, in Korea, pouring your own drink shows you are an independent woman. Do not wait for someone to serve you. That is old-fashioned. I picked up the soju bottle and poured my own glass. The table went quiet. Mrs. Kwon set down her chopsticks. She looked at me the way you look at mud on a white carpet. Americans have no manners. Junseo closed his eyes, not in sympathy, in frustration, like I was a project that kept failing quality control. I drank my soju and felt the burn all the way down. 3 traps, 3 disasters, and every single one of them handed to me by a woman who hugged me goodbye at the end of every visit and said, "You are doing so well, sister." I was not doing well, but I did not know that yet either. The following week, Soo-yeon dropped by with a schedule. She was all smiles, all helpfulness. Jun Seo mentioned you are learning to cook Korean food. His grandmother's kitchen is available this Saturday. She would love to teach you. Really? That would be wonderful. I will arrange everything. What she arranged, I would learn later, was a production crew. Jun Seo set the whole thing up. A cooking lesson in his grandmother's kitchen, filmed from the corner by two men with a camera and a boom microphone. But I did not know that. All I knew was that Jun Seo stood behind me at the counter, his hands over mine on the knife, showing me how to cut the tofu for kimchi jjigae. His grandmother stirred the pot and said something in Korean that made him laugh. Flour got on my nose somehow, and he wiped it off with his thumb. Then he held my face just for a second. His eyes on mine, warm, present. My heart cracked open in that kitchen, the steam from the pot, the sound of his grandmother humming, his hands still warm on mine. I thought, this is the man I am going to grow old with. This is my family now. I belong here. The footage became the opening segment at every Bridge Korea trade show that year. American wife learns Korean cooking from grandmother. Clients watched it before the sales pitch started. It closed deals. It sold the dream of cultural exchange wrapped in a love story that was, as far as I knew, completely real. The next morning, Soo-young called again. That same bright voice, that same careful question. Morgan, I heard Jun Seo has a big client event coming up next month, something with an important delegation. Tell me about it. I want to make sure you are prepared. I told her everything, the date, the clients, the venue. I gave her the ammunition and thanked her for asking. I did not know what was coming, but it was coming all the same. By month 5, Jun Seo booked us a trip to Jeju Island. He called it a surprise, pulled the tickets out of his briefcase one evening and held them up like a little boy who had just aced a test. Just us, he said. No meetings, no clients, just you and me. I believed every word. Now, what I did not know, and what I would not know for a long time, was that the entire trip was filed as a business tax write-off. Every receipt, the car rental, the hotel, even the tangerines we picked off the trees at that little farm on the southern coast, all of it categorized under promotional expenses. But I am getting ahead of myself. Jeju was beautiful in a way that made my chest ache. We drove along the coast with the windows down, the salt air whipping through the car, and I remember thinking this was the first time I had felt light since I moved to Korea. No family dinners to survive, no customs to memorize, just the ocean and his hand on my knee and the sky so blue it looked painted. We stopped at a tangerine farm. I had never picked fruit off a tree with a man I loved. And let me tell you, something about it made me feel like a child again. He reached up and pulled one down, peeled it with his thumb, and held a piece to my lips. I took it. Sweet and warm from the sun, he smiled, and it was the kind of smile that made you forget there was a world beyond this moment. That evening, we walked the beach at sunset. The water was gold. He found a thin piece of cord washed up in the sand, threaded a small seashell through it, and tied it around my neck. It is not a diamond, he said. I do not need a diamond. He kissed my forehead. I closed my eyes and let the waves do the talking. That night in the hotel, I wrote in my journal. I still have the page. It said, I think this is the man I will grow old with. I underlined it twice. What I did not know was that a professional photographer had followed us the entire trip. Every tangerine, every beach walk, every moment I thought was ours. He was 50 feet behind us with a telephoto lens, crouching behind rocks and fences like a man on a wildlife assignment. Within 2 weeks, those photos became the centerpiece of Bridge Korea's premium brochure. The couple's Jeju experience. My face on the cover, salt in my hair, that seashell around my neck. I found the brochure months later in a stack of mail I was not supposed to open. By then, I had other things to worry about, but there was one moment on that trip that did not end up in any brochure. One evening, back in Seoul, I was sitting at the desk in our study, practicing Korean calligraphy. I had been at it for weeks. My brushstrokes were terrible. The ink bled in the wrong direction, and the characters looked like a child had drawn them with their left hand in the dark. But I kept going because I wanted to write a letter to his grandmother in her own language. I wanted to get something right. I did not hear him come home. He stood in the doorway behind me. I do not know how long he watched, but when I turned around, his face was different. Not the business smile, not the husband smile, something I had never seen before. His mouth was slightly open. His eyes were soft and confused, like a man looking at something he did not expect to find in his own house. He almost spoke. I saw the breath come in. I saw his lips part. I waited. He turned and walked down the hallway without saying a word. I sat there with the brush in my hand, ink drying on the paper, and I thought that was strange. But I told myself it was nothing. Maybe he was tired. Maybe I was reading too much into it. 25 years later, I can tell you this. That was the first time something real crossed his face. Whether it was love or guilt, I still cannot say. But it was the first crack. And I missed it because I was too busy trying to earn the love I already thought I had. Now, let me tell you about the gift. Grandmother's birthday was approaching, and I wanted to do everything right. I went to Soo Yeon. Of course I did. She was my guide, my sister, the woman who hugged me after every disaster and whispered, "You are doing so well." I bought a beautiful silk scarf. Soo Yeon helped me wrap it. "Use the white paper," she said, holding out a roll of it. White means purity in Korean culture. It is for celebrations. I wrapped that gift with such care, folded every corner like I was wrapping a present for my own grandmother back in Houston, tied a ribbon, practiced my bow. At the birthday dinner, I presented the gift to grandmother with both hands, just like Jun Seo had taught me. I bowed. I smiled. Grandmother looked at the white paper. Her hands pulled back like the box was on fire. She would not touch it. The cousins at the table went quiet. One of them whispered to another behind a cupped hand. I heard the word American. I heard something else I did not understand. I stood there with the gift extended, and nobody took it. Jun Seo's jaw tightened. He did not look at me. He did not explain. He took the gift from my hands, set it on a side table, and the dinner continued as if I had not just done something unforgivable. I did not find out until later that in Korean culture, white is the color of death, funerals, mourning. I had wrapped a birthday gift for an elderly woman in funeral paper, like handing someone a coffin with a bow on it. After dinner, I went to the kitchen. I could not hold it anymore. And I stood at the sink and I cried, quiet, ugly crying with my hand over my mouth so nobody would hear. Mrs. Park found me. She was a family friend, older, worked with Bridge Korea in some capacity I never fully understood. She stood in the doorway with a glass of water and watched me for a moment before she spoke. "What happened, Morgan?" I told her. I said Soo Yeon told me white was for celebrations. I said I was trying to do the right thing. I said I did not understand why everything I did in this country turned into a disaster. Mrs. Park's face changed. It was subtle, but I saw it. The softness left her eyes. Something harder replaced it. Not anger at me, something else. She opened her mouth, and then Soo Yeon walked into the kitchen. "Morgan, are you okay? I heard you were upset." She rushed to me, put her arm around my shoulder, rubbed my back. "I am so sorry. I should have checked. Different regions have different customs. Maybe the tradition I learned was different from grandmother's." Mrs. Park closed her mouth. She set the glass of water on the counter, looked at Soo Yeon for one long second, and then walked out of the kitchen without saying a word. I noticed the look. Something passed between them, but I did not understand it. I was too busy crying, too busy blaming myself, too busy thinking maybe I am just not good enough for this family. Later that evening, at the table, Mrs. Park watched Soo Yeon pour tea for me with a bright, helpful smile. I saw Mrs. Park's chopsticks pause in midair. She studied Soo Yeon's face the way a woman studies a crack in a wall, trying to figure out if the whole thing is about to come down. She saw the pattern. I know that now. She saw what Soo Yeon was doing, trap by trap, smile by smile, and she said nothing. She looked away and she picked up her chopsticks and she ate her dinner in silence. I should have seen it. Lord, I should have seen it. Every custom Soo Yeon taught me exploded in my face, and I never once asked myself the obvious question. Because she was family. because she held my hand and called me sister. Because when you are alone in a country that is not yours, you hold on to whatever feels like home. By month 8, Jun Seo arranged everything for the proposal. He had a handbook made for me, custom fitted, deep blue with gold embroidery. He reserved a private section at Gyeongbokgung Palace. He had flowers, a ring, a speech he had practiced in the mirror, and a film crew disguised as documentary makers. "We are shooting a piece on Korean traditions," the cameraman told me. "Do you mind if we film nearby?" I said, "Of course not." I was wearing a hanbok in a palace with the man I loved. I could not think straight. He got down on one knee. He took my hands. He said things I will not repeat here because those words, real or not, still live in a part of my heart I have not fully cleaned out. I sobbed. I said yes. I grabbed his face and said yes 100 times. The film crew captured every second. The wedding was a Korean-American fusion ceremony, both cultures. My mother flew in from Houston. His family wore traditional dress. I wore white. The irony of that was not lost on the universe, even if it was lost on me. The whole thing was professionally filmed, edited into a 20-minute promotional video with music, narration, and the Bridge Korea logo in the bottom corner. Copies were sent to every Fortune 500 company on Jun Seo's prospect list. The wedding video generated $200,000 in new corporate bookings in the first quarter alone. My happiest day became his best sales tool. A week after the wedding, Jun Seo mentioned casually at dinner that the VP from Hyundai had called. He said your presentation at the Seoul conference was the best part of the whole event. I blushed. Really? Really? He said it like a proud husband, touched my hand across the table. They love you, Morgan. I smiled and felt like I mattered. What I did not hear in that sentence was the calculation. The clients love you. You. Not Bridge Korea, not the agency. You. And he knew it. He had always known it. Somewhere around month 9, a small thought crept in. I was sitting with Soo-yeon, going over details for an upcoming corporate event. 200 clients, major investors. The biggest event Bridge Korea had ever hosted. Jun Seo told me I would give the welcoming greeting on stage. Every custom you teach me goes wrong. I said, I did not say it angry. I said it quiet, like a woman testing a thought she was not sure she was allowed to have. Soo-yeon's face did not change, not even a flicker. Korean customs vary by region, she said, shrugging. I grew up in a different area than Jun Seo's family. What I learned was different. I am sorry if my guidance was not perfect. I was only trying to help. And I accepted it. Of course I did, because the alternative was unthinkable. The alternative meant that my sister, the woman who braided my hair and taught me how to fold dumplings, had been lying to my face for 9 months. I blamed myself for not learning faster. I told myself I needed to study harder, try harder, be better. The thought crept back into its hole, and I locked the door on it. The night of the Bridge Korea event, 200 corporate clients and investors filled the ballroom. Jun Seo was electric. Shaking hands, laughing, working the room like the room belonged to him, he pulled me aside backstage. You will open with a greeting in Korean, he said. Soo-yeon will teach you the phrase, make it warm, make it personal. Soo-yeon appeared with a smile. Repeat after me, she said, and she taught me a phrase, slowly, syllable by syllable. She made me practice it 4 times. It means I am honored to be here tonight and I welcome you with my whole heart. I walked on stage. 200 faces looked up at me. The lights were hot. The microphone was cold in my hand. I said the phrase. The room murmured, not the warm murmur of appreciation, the sharp murmur of shock. I saw a woman at table 6 cover her mouth. I saw 2 men at the bar exchange a glance that made my stomach drop. Jun Seo was standing at the side of the stage. His face went white, not red, white, like the blood left his body through his shoes. The phrase did not mean, I am honored to be here. What it meant, I found out later, was something crude. Something you would not say in a locker room, let alone in front of 200 of the most important business people in Seoul. 2 clients excused themselves before the appetizers arrived. By the next morning, word had spread through every business circle in the city. The American wife of Kwon Junseo had said something unspeakable at the Bridge Korea Gala. Before I could even process what had happened, Soo-yeon was at my elbow the next afternoon. "We are late for the tea ceremony. Come, we must hurry." She rushed me out the door, down the street, up the steps of a traditional Korean home. Go in, they're already seated." I walked in with my shoes on. I did not even think about it. She had rushed me. She said we were late. I was still rattled from the night before, and I walked straight into that house, wearing my shoes on the wooden floor. The host stood up. Her face was a mask of horror. 3 cultural figures were seated around the table, and every one of them stared at my feet like I had tracked mud across a church altar. I looked down. I looked at the shoe rack by the door that I had walked right past. The damage was done before I could take them off. That story spread through Seoul's elite circles like fire through dry grass. A newspaper gossip column mentioned a foreign wife of a prominent businessman who had disrespected Korean traditions at a private tea ceremony. By the end of the week, I was that rude American woman at every dinner party in Gangnam. I overheard Junseo on the phone a few days later. He was in his office with the door half open, and I caught a piece of the conversation as I passed. "Yes, she will be at the event. The client specifically asked for her." I paused in the hallway and smiled. I thought he was bragging about me. I thought the clients wanted me there because I was good at what I did, and I was. But what I did not understand was that I was not being booked as a partner. I was being confirmed as a deliverable. Around this time, I found out I was pregnant. The morning sickness hit hard and fast, and by the 3rd month, there was no hiding it. Junseo was attentive in the way he was attentive about everything, measured and precise. He drove me to appointments. He adjusted my schedule. He told the office I would not be traveling. But the evening I put his hand on my belly, everything shifted. I was lying on the couch. I felt the kick. I grabbed his hand and pressed it flat against my skin. "Wait," I said. "Just wait." The baby kicked again, right into his palm. Junseo froze. His whole body went still, like a man who had just been told something in a language he did not speak. His eyes changed, not the business eyes, not the performance eyes, something deeper, something raw and unscripted and so real it startled me. For the first time since I had known him, I saw something in his face that was not a performance. "Junseo." He pulled his hand back slowly. He nodded once, got up, and went to his office. I heard the door close. I lay there with my hand where his had been, and I thought, what just happened? Something broke through, something he did not plan for, but I could not name it, and by the next morning, he was back to normal, measured, attentive, professional about love. Our son was born on a Tuesday in a hospital in Gangnam. Junseo was there for the delivery. He held my hand through the contractions, and when the baby came, the nurse placed our son on my chest, and the room disappeared. Then Junseo held him. He sat in the chair beside my bed, and the nurse placed the baby in his arms. And the man I had married, the man who ran a company and managed clients and calculated every moment of our lives, looked down at his son's face and froze. Not a pause, not a moment of tenderness, a full freeze, like the operating system behind his eyes crashed and rebooted and came back as something different. His chin trembled, his eyes filled. He did not let the tears fall, but they were there. He looked at me, then back at the baby, and I saw something I had been waiting to see for over a year. I saw a man who had not planned for this. The first months of parenthood blurred together. I was up every 3 hours, feeding, changing, singing the songs my mother used to sing to me. Junseo watched me with the baby. He would stand in the doorway of the nursery at night while I rocked our son, and something in him kept shifting. Quiet shifts, the kind you only notice when you look back years later. He was changing. His love was becoming real, but I did not have the eyes to see it because I was too tired, too overwhelmed, and too deep inside my own love for that baby to notice anything else. One afternoon, while the baby napped, I went into Junseo's office looking for a pen. I opened the top drawer of his filing cabinet. No pens. I opened the second drawer, and there in the front was a thick folder labeled Brand Ambassador Strategy. My hand touched the edge of the folder. I started to pull it forward. The phone rang. It was the landline in the hallway. I could tell from the ring pattern it was long distance. I pushed the drawer closed and went to answer. "Hey, baby." My mother's voice. "Houston. Home." She wanted to know about the baby. She wanted to hear me. She talked for 40 minutes. By the time I hung up, I had forgotten about the folder. I went to check on the baby. I heated a bottle. I changed a diaper. And the folder sat in that drawer, waiting, holding every truth I needed, 6 inches from my hand. You want to scream at me? I know. I want to scream at me too. But that is the thing about the truth. It does not disappear just because you close the drawer. It waits, and it is patient. A few weeks later, I was walking home from the market with the baby in the stroller. An American woman stopped me on the sidewalk. Blonde, big smile, camera around her neck. "Oh my God," she said. "You are the woman from the Korea brochure." I blinked. "I am sorry?" "The brochure, Bridge Korea. My company sent our whole team here because of your story. My boss showed us the video, the one from the wedding, and said, if she can fall in love with Korea, so can we." She grabbed my hand. "You are the reason we are here." I did not know what to say. I smiled and thanked her and said something polite. Behind me, Junseo stood on the sidewalk with a bag of groceries in each hand. His jaw was tight. He did not say a word. I thought nothing of it. I should have thought everything of it. A stranger on a sidewalk in Seoul had just told me that I was the reason her company flew an entire team across the Pacific Ocean. And my husband's reaction was not pride, it was fear. By then, the marriage was splitting down the middle like a log under an axe. In public, we were golden, his hand on my back at events, my smile in every photo, the perfect couple, the Bridge Korea story. In private, the distance grew by the day. He came home later. I went to bed earlier. We passed each other in the hallway like two people sharing a hotel. He would look at me sometimes, standing in the kitchen holding the baby, and I could see something in his eyes, something that wanted to speak, something that wanted to reach out and hold both of us and say the thing he had almost said in the doorway that night, watching me do calligraphy. But he never said it. His love was becoming real, and I could not see it. I was too busy surviving the damage, the cultural mistakes that were not my mistakes, the whispers, the gossip columns, the clients who looked at me sideways. The agency's reputation was suffering, and I blamed myself because everyone else blamed me. And when the whole world tells you it is your fault, eventually you believe them. 4 traps, 3 of them in the space of 2 months, and every single one of them handed to me by the same woman who kissed my cheek at the door every morning and said, "Have a wonderful day, sister." The worst part is not the traps. The worst part is that I loved her. I really did. And that made every single cut go deeper than it should have. Junseo decided the best way to fix a sinking ship was to throw a party on the deck. He called it a business gala. Rented out the top floor of the Lotte Hotel. Invited every client, every investor, every partner who had heard the whispers about his American wife and her string of cultural disasters. The idea was simple. Put Morgan front and center, let them see her shine, remind them why they signed with Bridge Korea in the first place. And I went because that is what I did. I showed up, I smiled, I wore the navy dress he picked out, the pearl earrings his mother gave me at the wedding, and I walked into that ballroom like I belonged there, because I believed I did. The room was gold and crystal, 200 guests, champagne towers, a string quartet playing something I did not recognize. Junseo worked the room like a man born to it. One hand on my lower back when we greeted people together, the other shaking hands and trading business cards. In public, we were still the golden couple, the camera-ready love story. I played my part. He played his. My table was near the front. Junseo had seated me with 3 of his business partners, men I had met before at other events. Mr. Choi, Mr. Han, Mr. Yoon, they were relaxed, ties loosened, faces flushed from the soju. They liked me. They always had. I was the fun one at the table, the American who tried her best and laughed at her own mistakes. They thought I was charming. Mr. Choi raised his glass. To Junseo, he said, the smartest man in this room. I raised mine too, smiled, proud wife. He looked at the American market, Mr. Choi continued grinning, and said, I will marry my marketing strategy. The table laughed. I kept my glass up. My smile held, but something in my chest shifted, a small thing, like a picture frame tilting on a wall. Mr. Han leaned in, pointing at me with his chopstick. That brochure with your face on it? Every American company that walks through our door has seen it. You bring him more clients than his whole sales team. He said this like a compliment, like I should be proud. Mr. Yoon was the worst, not because he was cruel, because he was honest. He laughed, shook his head, and said, do not tell us he married you for love. We know Junseo. That man does not do anything without a business plan. They laughed again, all 3 of them. Warm, drunk, friendly laughter. The kind of laughter that comes from men who think everyone is in on the joke. I was not in on the joke. I set my glass down. The champagne caught the light. The room kept moving around me, but I had stopped. Everything stopped. The photo shoots. Just be natural, Morgan. The magazine features. The readers will love your story. The corrections. Every bow, every greeting, every chopstick angle. The 2 smiles. The one he wore at events, warm and wide and full of teeth. The one he wore at home, which was no smile at all. The brochure with my face on the cover. The couple's Jeju experience. The Hyundai VP. They love you, Morgan. The phone call I overheard. The client specifically asked for her, the American tourist on the street who recognized me. My company sent us here because of your story. My story. His story. His pitch deck. His product line. I was not his wife. I was a brochure that could hold a baby. I excused myself, told them I needed to powder my nose. Southern girl training. Smile when you are breaking. Be polite when you want to scream. I pushed my chair back, smoothed my dress, and walked across that ballroom floor like nothing was wrong. 1 foot, then the other. The bathroom was at the end of a marble hallway, and I made it there without falling apart, which is its own kind of miracle. The door closed behind me. I gripped the edge of the sink with both hands, and I looked up. Now let me stop here, because I need to tell you something about mirrors. When you are 20, a mirror shows you your mother's face. When you are 30, it shows you the face you have earned. But when you are 35 years old, standing in a bathroom in Seoul, South Korea, and you have just realized that the last 2 years of your life were a line item in someone else's budget, the mirror does not show you anything you recognize. You look at your own eyes and you do not know the woman staring back. You see the pearl earrings his mother gave you. You see the dress he picked out. You see the lips that said yes at Gyeongbagung Palace, that kissed him in the rain in Myeongdong, that smiled for every photographer he planted at every table. And you realize those lips have been moving this whole time, but the words were never yours. They were scripted. You just did not know you were reading from someone else's pages. I am 60 years old now, and I still remember the cold of the marble under my fingers. I still remember the fluorescent light above that mirror. I still remember the sound of the gala bleeding through the walls, the music and the laughter, while I stood there and watched the woman I thought I was to solve. Girl, that mirror took everything from me, and it gave me back only one thing: clarity. The ride home was silent. Junseo drove. I sat in the passenger seat with my hands in my lap and my eyes on the highway lights. He asked me twice if I was feeling well. I said yes both times. I lied both times. He turned on the radio. I turned it off. We did not speak again. He went to bed. I did not. I stood in the hallway outside his office. The apartment was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the sound of my own breathing. Our son, was asleep in his crib down the hall, 6 months old. I could hear the monitor crackling softly from the bedroom, the filing cabinet. I had been here before. Months ago, looking for a pen, I had pulled the drawer open and seen the folder. Brand ambassador strategy. The phone had rung, my mother calling from Houston. 40 minutes of catching up. I forgot the folder. I closed the drawer. The truth does not disappear just because you close the drawer. It waits, and it is patient. I opened it. The folder was thick. Manila. Tabbed with color-coded dividers. The kind of organization Junseo brought to everything in his life. I pulled it out and carried it to the desk, sat down in his chair, turned on the lamp. The first page was a cover sheet. Bridge Korea, Brand Ambassador Strategy, Fiscal Year 2000. His handwriting in the margins, notes, projections, timeline. I turned the page. Section 1. Market Positioning Through Cultural Integration. I read it. Then I read it again. It described the value of having an American spouse who would serve as the public face of the agency. Not Morgan, not any specific woman. An American spouse, a concept, a role to be cast. Section 2, Spousal Integration Plan, 4 pages, detailed step by step, month 1 through month 12. Courtship timeline, relocation logistics, cultural training schedule, media appearances, photo opportunities, client-facing events, every romantic gesture mapped to a business quarter, Jeju in month 5, the proposal in month 8, the wedding time to the fiscal year. I turned another page. There was a budget, line items in neat columns, spouse-related promotional activities, cultural immersion content production, partner engagement events featuring American spouse, amounts in Korean won, translated to dollars in the margin, the seashell necklace from Jeju, $47, the hanbok for the proposal, $1,200, the rooftop dinner, $310. Each moment I had treasured reduced to a receipt. My hands were shaking. I did not notice until the paper rattled. I turned to the last section, the appendix, and there it was, the line that ended my marriage. American wife, TBD. Not Morgan Taylor. Not the woman he met in Houston, not the woman who made him laugh, who wrote letters to his grandmother in clumsy Korean calligraphy, who held his hand on the beach at Jeju and truly believed that she had found her person. TBD, to be determined. The plan was written before he ever met me. Any American woman would have done. I was not chosen because he loved me. I was chosen because I fit the criteria. Warm personality, attractive, good with people, college educated, the kind of face that photographs well in a brochure. I was interchangeable. I was a casting decision. I sat in that chair for a long time. The lamp hummed. The pages were spread across the desk like an autopsy. Everything I thought was real opened up and labeled. Then I heard him. Morgan? Junseo stood in the doorway, dress shirt untucked, hair pushed back. His eyes went from my face to the desk, to the papers, to the folder. I held up the cover sheet. Brand Ambassador Strategy. My voice did not shake. I was surprised by that. Morgan, let me explain. Spousal Integration Plan. I held up the next page. Month of 1 through 12. Courtship, relocation, media appearances. He stepped into the room. That was before. That was the beginning. Things changed. American wife, I said. TBD. His mouth opened. Nothing came out. To be determined, I said. That is what I was. Before you ever knew my name, before Houston, before anything, I was a line item in a budget and a blank space where a name should be. Morgan, please. Was Jeju real? I asked. He closed his eyes. The rooftop? The rain? The cooking lesson with your grandmother? Was any of it real, or was all of it a photo shoot? It started as business, he said. The words came out cracked like something breaking from the inside. I will not lie to you about that. It started as business, but it changed. I changed. Morgan, I love. Do not. He stopped. Do not you dare finish that sentence. I stood up. The chair rolled backward. and hit the bookshelf. You do not get to say that word to me, not tonight, not with this on the desk between us. You do not get to stand in this room and tell me you love me while I'm holding the budget line that paid for our first date. His chin trembled. His eyes filled, and a part of me, the part that had loved him on that beach, that had said yes at the palace, that had believed every single word, that part of me wanted to go to him, wanted to believe that the tears were real, that the man shaking in front of me was not the same man who had written TBD where my name should have been. But I could not unknow what I knew. "How much?" I whispered. "How much revenue did our wedding generate?" He did not answer. $200,000, I said. "First quarter. I heard Mr. Choi tonight. I heard all of them. They all knew. Every person in the ballroom knew what I was, except me." The silence between us was so heavy I could feel it pressing on my chest. Then, from the other room, our son started to cry. 6 months old. That small hiccuping wail that cuts through walls and closed doors and everything else. The sound of a child who does not know what his parents have done, who does not know what any of this means, who only knows that it is dark and he is alone and he wants someone to come. Junseo looked toward the hallway. I looked toward the hallway. And for 1 second, we were not enemies. We were just two parents hearing their baby cry. But the papers were still on the desk. The folder was still open. And my name was still missing from the plan that built this life. I walked past him. I did not touch him. I went to my son. I picked him up, my son. He was warm and damp from crying, his little fists balled against my collarbone, his mouth open and searching for something I was not sure I could give him. I held him against my chest and rocked back and forth in the dark nursery with the curtains drawn and the glow of the nightlight making shadows on the wall. Behind me, down the hall, I could hear Junseo. He had not followed me. I imagine he was still standing in that office doorway, looking at the papers on the desk, trying to figure out which version of his life had just ended. My son's crying slowed. His breathing found mine. His fingers curled around the collar of my blouse and held on. I do not know how long I stood there. Long enough for the apartment to go quiet, long enough for the nightlight to feel like the only light left in the world. Then I heard footsteps, soft, deliberate. Junseo appeared in the nursery doorway. His eyes were red. His jaw was tight. He did not say a word. He just stood there, looking at his son in my arms. "Can I hold him?" His voice broke on the last word. I should have said no. Every cell in my body was screaming at me to say no, to turn my back, to take my baby and walk out of this apartment and never look at this man again. But our son was reaching for his father, 6 months old, and he already knew those arms, already knew that voice. So I handed him over. Junseo took him. And then he did something I had never seen him do. He pressed his face into our son's neck and he cried, not the polished, dignified tears of a man who controls every room he enters. These were ugly, broken. His shoulders shook. His breath came in gasps. He held that baby like he was holding the last real thing he had ever touched, and he wept. I watched, and for one terrible moment, I almost believed him. I almost let those tears rewrite the document on the desk. I almost let the sound of his grief wash over the words spousal integration plan, an American wife TBD, and every budget line that turned my love into a receipt. I watched him hold our son, and I thought, maybe this part was real. Maybe the man who cried into his baby's neck was not the same man who wrote that plan. But then I saw the disc. Through the doorway down the hall, I could see the edge of the lamp still glowing, the paper still spread out, and I remembered, TBD, you cannot unread 3 letters. You cannot unhear a truth once it lands inside you. You can cover it up, push it down, pretend it does not live in your chest like a stone, but it is there. It will always be there. I decided that night, not in a dramatic way, not with shouting or slamming doors or packing suitcases. I decided the way a woman decides when she has a baby sleeping down the hall and nowhere to go, and the man she married is not the man she thought he was. I decided quietly, in the dark, with my eyes open, I was going to file for divorce. Now, let me tell you something about being a Black American woman filing for divorce in Seoul, South Korea in the year 2000. The Korean legal system was not built for me. It was not built for any foreign woman trying to leave a Korean husband. The paperwork was in Korean, the courts were in Korean, the lawyers spoke Korean, and I had enough Korean to order lunch and compliment someone's grandmother. That was it. I called the American embassy the next morning. A woman with a flat Midwest accent gave me a list of English-speaking lawyers in Seoul who handled international divorce cases. 7 names. 3 of them had disconnected numbers. 2 did not return my calls. 1 told me his retainer was more than I had in my savings. That left one. Her name was Mrs. Shin. I found her through an expat support group that met on Thursday evenings in a church basement in Itaewon. 12 women, mostly American and British, married to Korean men, living in varying states of happiness and despair. One of them, a woman from Atlanta named Denise, had been through her own divorce 2 years earlier. She slid Mrs. Shin's card across the table like she was passing me a weapon. "She is tough," Denise said. "She does not lose." Mrs. Shin was 5 feet tall and spoke English with a British accent she had picked up at law school in London. She looked at the documents I brought her, the ones from Jun Seo's filing cabinet, and she did not flinch. She had seen worse, she told me. In Korea, divorce involving foreign spouses was always complicated, always slow or always tilted, but she had done it before. She would do it again. The process was a war of attrition. Filings, translations, court dates. Every document had to be translated and notarized. Every claim had to be verified in 2 languages. I sat in offices where I understood every 3rd word and signed papers a translator explained to me in the hallway afterward. And there were days when the bureaucracy alone made me want to pack a bag and fly back to Houston and forget the whole thing. But I had a son, and my son was here. The family came at me from every angle. Mrs. Kwan called, not once, every week. Her voice on the other end of the line was controlled, measured, the way she spoke when she wanted you to think she was being reasonable. "Morgan, let us meet. Let us talk about this like a family." I told her there was nothing to discuss. "Think of what you are throwing away," she said. "The business, the life you have built, everything Jun Seo has given you, everything we have invested in this family." And there it was, the word she could not stop herself from using, invested. Even now, even with the marriage collapsing, she could not see me as a daughter. I was an investment, a depreciating asset threatening to walk out the door. I held the phone against my ear. My son was on my hip. The kitchen window looked out over a gray Seoul morning, and I said the truest thing I had ever said in that marriage. "You never gave me anything real to hold. Not one thing in this family was ever mine. Not the love, not the gestures, not even my own name in the plan that built this life. So do not tell me what I am throwing away. You cannot throw away something you never had." The line went quiet. "Goodbye, Mrs. Kwan." I hung up. Now let me tell you something. I have lived 60 years. I have buried people I loved. I have built things from nothing and watched them crumble. I have made decisions that cost me sleep and decisions that gave me peace. But the divorce was the strongest thing I ever did. Not the angriest, not the saddest, the strongest. Because I was 35 years old, alone in a foreign country, with a baby on my hip in a language I could barely speak, in a legal system that was not designed for me. And I did it anyway. I looked at the life that had been built around me, the beautiful photographed, brochure-ready life. And I said, no, that is power, even when it does not feel like it. The divorce finalized 4 months later. Mrs. Shin earned every cent. The settlement was not generous, but it was enough. Enough for first and last month on a small apartment in Mapogu. Enough for 6 months of breathing room while I figured out what came next. Jun Seo did not fight the financial terms. His lawyer fought everything else, the custody arrangement, the visitation schedule, the question of where our son would live. But on the money, he gave in quickly. I did not understand why at the time. Later, I stayed in Korea. My mother begged me to come home. Baby, Houston is right here waiting for you. But my son's father was in Seoul. His grandparents were in Seoul. His whole world, the only world he had ever known, was here. I was not going to rip him away from that because the adults in his life could not keep their promises. I found the apartment through the same expat group that found me Mrs. Shin, 2 bedrooms, a kitchen the size of a closet, a view of a concrete wall and someone else's laundry line. It was nothing like the apartment Jun Seo and I had shared, with its floor-to-ceiling windows and its imported furniture and its perfect staging for the life we were supposed to be living. It was mine, every square foot of it. I hung curtains. I bought a secondhand crib. I put my grandmother's sweet potato pie recipe on the refrigerator with a magnet I found at a street market. And I started over. What I did not know, what I would not learn until much later, was that Bridge Korea was dying. It started with phone calls. American clients calling the office and asking for me. Where is Morgan? We were told Morgan would be handling our group. Jun Seo's staff did not know what to say. They stammered. They redirected. They offered other coordinators, other faces, other voices. But the clients had signed up for the Morgan experience. They had seen my face on the brochure. They had watched the promotional video with my voice narrating their Seoul itinerary. They wanted me, and I was gone. Within 3 months, Bridge Korea lost 60% of its revenue. The corporate bookings dried up first. American companies that had been sending executives to Seoul every quarter stopped calling. The cultural immersion packages, the ones I had designed myself, the itineraries I had built with my own hands, nobody could deliver them the way I did. Jun Seo tried. He hired a new woman to give the presentations, an American consultant from Busan. She lasted 6 weeks. The clients were polite about it. They just did not rebook. The promotional materials were the final nail. Every brochure, every magazine ad, every VHS tape, every trade show banner, they all had my face on them, my smile, my story. After the divorce, they could not use any of it. Boxes of brochures sat in the Bridge Korea storeroom, useless. Thousands of dollars of marketing material turned into waste paper the day I walked out. I was the company. I just did not know it yet. And the flowers started 3 weeks after the divorce was final. The first time I thought it was a mistake. A small arrangement of white roses sitting on the doormat when I opened my apartment door in the morning. No card, just flowers. I brought them inside, put them in a glass because I did not own a vase, and did not think about it again. The next morning there were more. Pink this time, with a card. His handwriting, just 2 words, I'm sorry. The morning after that, yellow lilies. No card, but I knew every morning, every single morning, for weeks, flowers on my doorstep before I woke up, which meant he was driving across Seoul in the dark, leaving them at my door before dawn, and driving away without knocking. I tried to picture it. Jun Seo in his car at 5 a.m, holding a bouquet in the passenger seat, walking down my hallway in the building that smelled like sesame oil and floor cleaner, setting the flowers down gently so the rustling would not wake me, then leaving. Then the letter started, handwritten in English. His English was functional, but imperfect, the kind of English that gets the meaning across but stumbles on the grammar. And that is exactly what made the letters hit so hard. They were not polished. They were not strategic. They were the words of a man trying to say something in a language that was not his own. And the effort showed in every crooked line. I found the first one slid under my door on a Tuesday, 2 pages, front and back. He wrote about the night he watched me practicing calligraphy from the doorway. He wrote that he almost said something that night but could not find the words. He wrote that by the time he found the words, it was too late for me to believe them. I read it standing in my kitchen with my son on my hip. I read it twice. Then I put it in a drawer and closed it. More letters came, slid under the door at odd hours. Sometimes in the morning with the flowers, sometimes late at night after I had turned out the lights. I would find them in the morning, white paper on the tile floor, his handwriting pressing through the pages. Then he did something I was not prepared for. He learned to make my grandmother's sweet potato pie. I do not know how he got the recipe. My best guess is that he called my mother in Houston. That man picked up a telephone and called Arlene Taylor in Texas and asked her how to make her mother's sweet potato pie. And my mother, who had spent the last 4 months calling me every Sunday, telling me to come home, must have given it to him. I will have to ask her about that someday. The first time he brought it was at a custody handoff. We did those on Saturdays. I would bring our son to the park near my apartment, and Junseo would be waiting on the bench by the fountain. We exchanged the baby. We exchanged the diaper bag. We did not exchange words beyond what was necessary. It was civil. It was cold. But that Saturday, he was holding something wrapped in foil. He handed me the baby. Then he held out the foil. "I made this," he said. "It is not right, but I tried." I took it. It was warm. I could smell it through the foil. Brown sugar, cinnamon, sweet potato. My grandmother's kitchen in Houston folded into a pie dish by Korean hands in a Seoul apartment. I did not say anything. I tucked it under my arm with the diaper bag and walked away. But I ate it that night after my son was asleep, sitting on the kitchen floor with a fork and that pie still in the foil. It was not right. Too much cinnamon, not enough vanilla. The crust was overbaked, but he tried. He stood in the rain. I need to tell you that because it matters. It was October. Seoul in October is cold and wet and gray in a way that gets into your bones. I came home from the market with grocery bags in both hands and my son strapped to my chest, and I saw him standing across the street from my building. No umbrella, his jacket dark and heavy with water, his hair flat against his forehead. Just standing there, looking up at my window. I went inside, I put the groceries away, I fed my son, I gave him a bath, I put him down, and then I went to the window. He was still there, rain coming down in sheets, the streetlight above him turning the water gold, his hands at his sides, not pacing, not calling out, just waiting, like a man who had decided that standing in the rain was the only honest thing he had left to offer. I did not go down. I watched him for a long time. Then I closed the curtain. The photograph started after that. Small prints slid under my door. Our son at the park, laughing on a swing. Our son in Junseo's arms, pointing at a bird. Our son asleep on Junseo's chest on the couch, both of them peaceful in a way that made my throat close. Each photo had a note on the back, his handwriting. He smiled today when he saw a dog. He grabbed my finger and would not let go. His first word, Appa. Appa, Daddy. I put that photograph on the refrigerator. I told myself it was for my son that he should see his father's face even when his father was not there. But I knew the truth. I put it there because I wanted to look at it. Because in that photograph, Junseo's face was something I recognized. Something I had seen only in flashes before. In the doorway, when he watched me practice calligraphy. In the hospital, when he held our son for the first time. That look, unguarded, real. I put all the photographs on the refrigerator, every single one. Months passed, the flowers did not stop, the letters did not stop, the photographs kept coming. The sweet potato pie appeared at every custody handoff, a little better each time, the crust a little softer, the filling a little smoother, until one Saturday I bit into it and it tasted like my grandmother's kitchen, and I had to turn away so he would not see my face. Other women would have gotten flowers for a week, a nice card, maybe a phone call. Then the man would have moved on, found someone easier to love, someone who did not require standing in the rain. In October, in Seoul, this man had been standing in the rain for months. I started to wonder, and I hated myself for wondering, because wondering meant the walls I had built were not as thick as I thought. Wondering meant some part of me, some small and stupid and hopeful part that should have learned its lesson by now, was still listening for something real in all of this. I replayed the moments, not the ones from the brochure, not the ones that were staged, photographed, invoiced. The other ones, the ones that had no camera, no audience, no line item. The doorway. The night he stood in the doorway watching me practice calligraphy. He did not know I could see his reflection in the window. His face was soft, open. He almost spoke. He did not. He turned and walked away, and I heard him close his bedroom door. And something in the way he closed that door was so gentle, it almost sounded like an apology. The baby kicked. The night I put his hand on my belly and our son kicked, Junseo's whole body went still. His eyes widened. He looked at me, and I saw something behind his eyes that he could not have faked because he did not know it was there. Surprise, fear, and underneath both, something so close to wonder that it hurt. His face when he held our son in the nursery that last night, the ugly, broken crying, the way his hands curved around that tiny body like he was holding something sacred and fragile and entirely beyond his ability to control. These were not budget lines. These were not staged. These were the moments that slipped through the cracks of his plan, and they haunted me now in ways the flowers and the letters and the rain never could. I was so close to going back. I need you to understand that. I was so close. The custody handoffs became the hardest part because I could not look away. Saturday at the park, I brought our son. Junseo was already there. He stood up from the bench when he saw us, not eager, not dramatic, just present. He reached for his son, and the boy went to him with his arms open, and I watched the way Junseo held him close, careful, his lips against our son's forehead, whispering something I could not hear. Korean words, soft ones, the kind of words that are only said to children and to the people you love when nobody else is listening. He put our son in the swing, pushed gently, caught him every time, laughed when the boy laughed, crouched down to his eye level and pointed at the pigeons and made a face that sent our son into hysterics. He was patient. He was gentle. He was present in a way that had nothing to do with cameras or brochures or business plans. I stood by the fountain and watched them, my hands in my coat pockets, the October air sharp against my face, and something in my chest shifted, not broke, not healed, shifted like tectonic plates moving deep underground, too deep to see, but you can feel the tremor. I thought about what my grandmother used to say. People are not one thing, baby girl. They are all the things they have ever been, stacked on top of each other. Maybe Junseo was the man who wrote TBD, where my name should have been, and maybe he was also the man standing in the rain, holding a pie he taught himself to bake, whispering to his son in a language I was still learning. Maybe both things were true. Maybe that was the hardest part. That night, I put my son to bed. I washed the dishes. I stood in the kitchen and looked at the photographs on the refrigerator. My son's face in all of them. Junseo's handwriting on everyone. I picked up the phone. It was the landline on the kitchen wall, beige plastic, a cord that curled and tangled no matter how many times I straightened it. I held the receiver against my ear and listened to the dial tone for a long time. Then I dialed his number from memory, every digit still in my fingers like a song I could not unlearn. It rang once. He answered. Morgan? His voice was quiet, careful, like a man who had been sitting next to a phone for months, waiting for a call he was not sure would ever come. I closed my eyes. Junseo, I said, can we talk? Now let me show you what was happening on the other side of that phone call. Because while I was standing in my kitchen dialing his number, while I was closing my eyes and saying his name and asking if we could talk, something else was happening across Seoul. Something I did not know about, something I would not learn about for months. And when I did learn about it, it would rearrange every memory I had of those flowers, those letters, that man standing in the rain. I need to take you somewhere else now. Stay with me. 3 weeks before I picked up that phone, Mrs. Kwon sat in a private office in Gangnam. Not her home, not the Bridge Korea office, a law firm, the kind with dark wood and leather chairs, and a receptionist who does not smile because smiling is not what you pay her for. Across from her sat a man in a gray suit with a manila folder thick enough to stop a door. His name does not matter. What matters is what Mrs. Kwon said to him. She set her teacup down. She folded her hands, and she said 5 words that would change the rest of my life. Get the boy in this. Not a request, an order. The way you tell a contractor to demolish a building, no emotion, no hesitation. Her grandson was the asset. I was the obstacle. And this man in the gray suit was the wrecking ball. He opened the folder. Inside was documentation, months of it. Every cultural failure I had committed since arriving in Seoul, cataloged and dated and reframed in language so cold it could have been written about a stranger. The red ink. I had written grandmother's name tag in red at a family dinner. Soo-yeon told me red was the lucky color. She watched me do it. She smiled while I did it. In the folder, it was described differently. A subject demonstrated hostile disregard for Korean ancestral customs by writing the family elder's name in death ink. Incident caused visible distress to the 82-year-old matriarch. The handshake. I shook an elderly grandfather's hand at a business dinner because Soo-yeon told me bowing was old-fashioned. In the folder, subject displayed physically aggressive greeting behavior toward an elderly Korean man, age 80. Witnesses report the elder was visibly shaken. Incident reflects a pattern of cultural hostility. The soju. I poured my own drink at a family gathering because Soo-yeon told me it showed independence. In the folder, subject refused to observe basic Korean dining customs. When offered the opportunity to participate in communal pouring traditions, subject acted unilaterally, demonstrating contempt for family structure. The white gift. I wrapped a grandmother's birthday present in white paper because Soo-yeon told me white meant purity. In the folder, subject presented a death-colored gift to the family matriarch on her birthday. The gesture caused the elder to refuse the gift publicly. Multiple family members interpreted this as a deliberate death wish. The phrase, I said something crude on stage at a Bridge Korea event because Soo-yeon told me it meant, I am honored to be here. In the folder, subject used sexually explicit language at a formal corporate event attended by 200 business professionals and investors. 2 clients left the event early. Media inquiries followed. The shoes. I wore shoes inside a traditional Korean home because Soo-yeon rushed me through the door. In the folder, subject entered a sacred cultural space wearing outdoor footwear, an act widely regarded in Korean society as deliberate desecration. The incident was reported in a Seoul newspaper gossip column and became a matter of public record. Every single one. Lined up like bullet points in a prosecution, each trap Soo-yeon had set, each lie she had told me, each moment she had smiled while I walked into the fire, now rewritten as evidence that I was dangerous, incompetent, culturally hostile, unfit. The newspaper gossip column was in the folder too, the one that called me a foreign wife of a prominent businessman who disrespected Korean traditions. It was flagged, highlighted, entered as Exhibit 7, public documentation of a pattern. And at the bottom of that folder, on the last page, was a custody petition, filed with the Seoul Family Court. The argument was simple. The American mother had demonstrated a sustained pattern of cultural incompetence, hostility toward Korean elders, and public behavior unbecoming of a parent raising a Korean child on Korean soil. Jun Seo's name was on the filing, his signature at the bottom in ink. The man who had been leaving flowers at my door every morning, the man who had learned to make my grandmother's sweet potato pie, the man who had stood in the rain for hours looking up at my window. His name was on a custody petition designed to take my son away from me. I want you to sit with that for a moment. Because here's the question that will keep you up at night, the same way it kept me up for years. Did he know? Did he know the traps were manufactured? Did he know his own sister had engineered every single cultural failure that was now being used to call me unfit? Or did his mother hand him the papers and tell him to sign, and he signed because that is what sons do in that family? Because the golden child does not say no, because the business was collapsing and the family was bleeding money and someone had to be blamed. Was the campaign real? Were the flowers real? Were the letters real? Was the rain real? Or was it all a delay? A beautiful, Heartbreaking, perfectly timed delay, designed to keep me in soul, keep me soft, keep me close, while the legal trap closed around me like a jaw. I do not know. Even now, sitting here, 25 years later, 60 years old, I do not know. Both things might be true. He might have loved me and signed those papers. He might have stood in the rain with a breaking heart and gone home and put his name on a document that would take my child. People are not one thing, my grandmother said. They are all the things they have ever been, stacked on top of each other. So let me tell you where we are. I was 35 years old. I was standing in a kitchen in Mapogoo with a beige telephone pressed against my ear, asking my ex-husband if we could talk. My walls were down. My heart was open. I was ready to walk back into his arms and tell him I forgive you and try again, and maybe this time it will be real. I was ready to believe that people change. That love, even love that arrives late, even love that grew in the wreckage of a lie, can still be love. And I had no idea that while he was building a bridge to me, his family was building a cage around me. Every trap his sister set was now a bar in that cage. Every lie she told me, every wrong lesson, every smile while I humiliated myself in front of his family and his business partners and his grandmother. All of it had been collected, cataloged, and turned into a legal argument that I did not deserve to raise my own son. I did not know any of this, not yet. Not that night, standing in my kitchen with the photographs on my refrigerator and the flowers wilting on the counter and the taste of his sweet potato pie still somewhere in the back of my memory. But I would know soon. And when I found out, when I finally understood what had been built around me while I was busy learning to forgive, I did not crumble. I did not run. I did not fold. I picked up every weapon I did not know I had. But that part, next time.